So the second half of the news today, Drake, of Locked On Big 12 and the Drake Toll Show, weekdays 12 to 2 on ESPN Central Texas, featuring Cam Stewart, is that not only will David Aranda be retained, but there's going to be some
David
major
Aranda.
shakeups.
I like it. He has not earned us calling him Dave anymore. He is David Aranda until he wins again.
David Aranda. Okay? He needs to, if he wants to be Daddy Dave again, we got to start winning some football games.
Correct.
So Matt Powledge, first-year defensive coordinator, demoted. David is now calling the plays defensively. And he has fired Jeff Grimes, looking for a new offensive coordinator. There's been a lot made of Jeff Grimes on social media, mostly, which is where we gauge a lot of the fans. It's a great way to gauge a lot of the fans. But when you look at the numbers, me personally, I don't think offense has been that much of an issue. Looking at this year's 3-9 record, Drake, do you think offense was the bigger of the two problems?
I wouldn't say so. No, Cam.
Tough to
I
say
don't
so.
I don't think that continuing to fire and demote assistants is going to get you anywhere productive. That's not a good. If I'm an offensive coordinator anywhere in America and I can go to Baylor to get fired. Sweet. That's not what I would want to do. Now having Larry Fedora and Ron Roberts and Matt Powledge and Jeff Grimes, what all those guys have in common? They're either not at Baylor anymore or they're not calling plays at Baylor anymore. Can I take you back, Cam, to that 2021 season? Baylor averaged 23.1 points per game this year. And in that 2021 year, they were holding most of their opponents under a 25-point threshold. And I'll put this out.
18 points per game allowed for the whole season that year, by the way.
And I'll put this point out here with that as well. In so many, for Locked On Big 12, I get to cover teams like Oklahoma, where the offense and the defense have a disconnect. At TCU, the offense and the defense have a disconnect. Sometimes you can have a really good offense, but if your defense has a deficiency that doesn't match your offense, doesn't complement your offense, you got to fire somebody. For Baylor, the offense has not been the problem. Your genius, guru, defensive mind, Dave Aranda, has been the defense was the issue this year, ranked 20 points behind the offense in most major metrics when you take total offense or total defense. That is not good. You hired Dave Aranda to run a good defense, and he hasn't done it. And then when you had your defensive coordinator that was just a little bit too mean and Ron Roberts, you fired him. You brought in Matt Powledge, and then you said, you know what, Matt? I'm going to call the plays now. Why didn't you do that in week 6? Why didn't you do that in week?
Which is something we see in the middle of the season. That is not an uncommon thing to see that in the middle of the season.
Why didn't we do that earlier? And I just think if you're Matt Powledge, you go, what am I doing here? You look around and think, I should have just stayed at Oregon where I had it all made out for me. I was the associate defense, or I was the co-defensive coordinator. He took a chance. He comes to Baylor, and so far it has been, I'm sure, a nightmare for him and his family. Yeah. And for Jeff Grimes,
he got a raw deal, by the way. Matt Powledge, a raw deal. I mean, your head coach is literally saying, I didn't bring in enough talent in the last 2 transfer portals. And that's why we have a bunch of freshmen playing out there. And, the numbers, they're bad. Okay. We've gone from 2021, 18 points a game to then 26.8 last year when there was some talent on there to over 33 this year. So in 2021, they allowed 30 points once in a game. It was 30 points exactly. 30-28 loss to TCU. They allowed 30 points 8 times this year. Yeah. And one of them, they only allowed 29. Big whoop. 8 times. Man, he got a raw deal. And so that's another thing that I'm looking at it like, Baylor at 23 points per game offensively this year. It's not great, but you could be at a 6-6 team. And if your defense is a little bit better, 23 is not the number you're sitting at if you have a good defense.
And look, you'd be too much of a homer to say that Jeff Grimes was an elite offensive coordinator at Baylor. Sure. I don't think, and I've talked to a lot of sources at BYU, he is not one of the elite play callers in America. I do know he's a great offensive mind. He has built the wide zone into something that wins, especially at an NFL level. I think that flies, and he's got a head coach mentality. You watch Baylor Plus, and you think, wow, is he the head coach? He's the only one that's yelling and actually commanding a locker room for that. And I've spoken with certain personnel that are with the team off the record who said, hey, it's not Jeff. Everybody loves Jeff. Nobody's got really an issue with that guy. It's others, Aranda being one of them. And Jeff Grimes is the same guy that coached Zach Wilson to a Heisman candidate type year. And in that season, Grimes had the number 3 offense in America, 44 points per game, and was the leader in the country in yards per play at 7.8 yards per play. You took one of the most sought-after offensive coordinators in America, who was in line to be a head coach in the Power 5 in a couple of years, and you ruined him. When he wanted to bring in players, when he wanted to recruit, there are so many restrictions with this person over player crap that, and it wasn't crap at the beginning when it was, hey, person and player. What if we could do it all?
Right. Now it's a great mentality, but
now look, hey, I like to consider myself a nice guy. I'm a good guy. Can I play football at Baylor? It seems like the answer might be yes. And the answer might shock you, no matter my skill level. And I know that there have been staff members who have like, dude, I want this player. And it's like, and Dave has said it, Mac has said it, that Dave has turned away players who could be issues, where I'm sure Jeff's looking around going, I don't have any athletes in here because you won't let me recruit. You ruined one of the nation's top offensive coordinators. And for that, I much less can't forgive Aranda. I can't forgive Aranda, much less give him another year.
Yeah, I mean, so basically what we went over is, I think the term handcuff is a good one. You handcuffed both your coordinators. You brought one in with no experienced talent on the roster, and then the other one is looking to bring in talent to the roster, and you're handcuffing him with your decisions. And it's just, it stinks because, I mean, I've been a defender of Jeff Grimes the last 3 years, especially what he did from 2020 to 2021. Huge jump. And
hey, Jeff, year go have a great offense. The defense is going to suck.
Yeah. Right. And this year you saw Sawyer Robertson on Saturday night had a great game. And so now to the point where people are in the comments section of these videos saying, is Sawyer your starter next year? Even though Blake Shapen was their best offensive player all year.
Right.
So you got 2 good quarterbacks. That's a good sign on the offensive coordinator, by the way. And yet he's the one that's getting cut loose. And he's almost at that level, I think, Drake, of almost too good to give up at Baylor. He doesn't get a full deck the last couple of years. But I'm like, look, he's not the flashiest OC in the world because people are still used to that Art Briles kind of offense. It's probably not coming back. But he's been damn effective everywhere he's gone. And so is he too good to cut loose? Are you going to get anyone better for next year?
By the way, let's revisit the Art Briles conversation of that offense.
Let's do it. Let's just keep bringing him up.
If you plug in that Art Briles offense to 2021, things go vastly differently. That is not an offense that's conducive to set up a defense for success. Baylor's going to allow a lot more points per game because the offense scores so quickly. Jeff Grimes is about clock management, establishing the ground game, being meticulous.
Wearing teams out.
And that has worked for him everywhere. He's won a national championship as an O-line coach, and then comes here, and once again, when your head coach says, I don't really do the portal thing, I don't really do the NIL thing, I don't feel comfortable with that, or, hey, yeah, don't bring that kid in, he might be a problem in the locker room. How is Jeff Grimes, the elite offensive coordinator from BYU, supposed to operate? That's my question.
It's a raw deal for both those guys. Raw deal. I don't love it.